Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knit California channel. My name is Leslie. I'm a knitter and knitwear designer from Southern California, and today's video is did I wear my knits in 2025? This is the third time I am making this video, the third year in a row that I'm making this video, and I'm excited to get into it with you. I've spent the last couple of days reviewing, well, last year's Yarn Enthusiast Journal, where I track every single day whether or not I wear a piece of knitwear. I have been collecting it all in my, you can't see that at all, in my Google Sheets spreadsheet. I have been making all of my charts. I have been analyzing it all. I've got my notes ready, and I'm really excited to talk to you all about what I found. So grab a project to work on and let's settle in and talk through all of this. Alrighty, so the format of this video, a little bit of an agenda up front. First, we're gonna go over my goal for 2025. Then I'm gonna talk to you about my most worn knits, like top 5 categories, well, top 5 knits that I wore this year. My thoughts on the items that I'm wearing and the items that I'm not wearing in my wardrobe. Then we're going to talk about my wears per month, my thoughts on my wears per month, then my overall trends and takeaways. Then I want to talk to you about some things that came up from last year's video, in the comments of last year's video. There were a lot of really great points that I really wanted to respond to, and I did respond in the comments of last year's video, but I thought they were good enough that I wanted to bring up again in this year's video and have a little bit more of a discussion on them. And then finally, what's next? What's next for this year for 2026? So that's our little agenda for today. And I'm gonna be honest with you right here up front. This year's video is gonna be a little bit different from last year's video. I'll link the previous 2 videos that I have done, 2023's, did I wear my knits in 2023, and did I wear my knits in 2024? I'll link both of those videos down below so you can go check them out. I think it's really interesting. I went back and watched last year's video actually because I wanted to see, well, I wanted to remember the format that I did this in, and then I also wanted to see kind of what my main takeaways were, and again I wanted to go through the comments. I just think it's interesting the differences between years, what I was thinking, what I was wearing, the trends I was seeing. So I don't know if you're curious about someone else's trends on if they're wearing their knitwear and what they're thinking about their wears. You can go back and watch those videos as well. But this year's video is going to be a little bit different. I'll talk you through some of the reasons why, and yeah, I guess let's just get into it. Let's start with my goal. So and I'm gonna be reading my notes, okay? My goal for this year was to be around 66% or above for days that I'm wearing my knits throughout the year. So 66% of the days of the year. That's about 2/3 of the days of the year. And that would have been steady with where I was last year in 2024. So kind of looking back at the last 2 years, in 2023, which was the first year that I regularly tracked whether or not I was wearing a knit every single day of the year, in 2023, I was at 52%. So I wore knits 191 days of the year, so out of 365 days. And then in 2024, I really wanted to do more than that, and I did. I went from 52% to 68%. So that was going from 191 days to 249 days. I do have to note that 2024 was a leap year, so we had 366 days in 2024. This year, 2025, I did not meet my goal. I wore knits 204 days out of the year. So 204 out of 365 is 56% of the days of the year. So I didn't meet the goal. I didn't meet my goal, right? So I didn't necessarily meet the 2/3 of the days of the year, the 66%, but I am between my 2023 number and my 2024 number. So I don't think this is a bad number. Like, I don't want to say, oh, you know, I did a bad job at wearing my knits this year, you know. I'm not gonna like categorize myself, I'm not gonna categorize it in this way. I'm not gonna like beat myself up for missing this goal. And there were reasons why this number was lower than it was last year. Okay, so before we talk about what I wore specifically, I show you the chart, we do need to talk a little bit about what was going on in my life this year, because it heavily impacts what I was wearing and why the numbers have ended up the way they ended up. So at the beginning of the year, I was living in Southern California, and then in July, I moved most of my stuff into a storage unit in Southern California, and I moved myself temporarily here to Las Vegas. And I have been living here in Las Vegas for the last 6 months, I guess, since July. So in my storage unit in Southern California is the majority of my yarn stash and the majority of my knitwear. The knitwear that is not in my storage unit includes most of the stuff that I knit this year, actually, in 2025, as well as all of my designs I brought with me. So at the beginning of this year, like, I had every single piece of knitwear that I've ever knit and not given away and not frogged available to me to wear. But then in the second half of this year, that is not the case. So this event and situation has definitely skewed my numbers a little bit. So we need to keep this in mind going through these numbers. Additionally, all of my socks are in my storage unit, except for the one pair that I finished on like December 27th. And I have not worn them. I did not wear them at all in the last couple of days of December. So I'm gonna show you the chart now of all of the knits that I wore this year in 2025. So this is a bar chart. It's got all of my knits across the bottom, and then the bars indicate the number of times that they were worn, and the different colors in the bars represent the months of the year. At first look, the higher bars will stand out as the knits that I wore the most during the year. So let's talk about my most worn knits. So my number one most worn knit category is my socks. And just as a note, the way that I track things, this is the same way that I did this last year. I do not track my socks individually. I track them all together in one category. I don't see any advantage in tracking my socks individually. I don't find much of a difference in like each individual pair of socks, at least right now in the socks that I have, so that's why I group them all together. If you're doing this, you may want to track them individually. That is a personal preference and a personal choice. So this is the way that I do it. But all of my socks are my most worn knit of the year. I have 59 wears between January and April. And I can't remember the exact number, but I think I have 7 or 8 pairs of socks. I really enjoy wearing my knit socks with slippers, especially when it's, you know, in the winter months. It's chilly, the floors are cold, right? We've got like hardwood floors. That is like the perfect scenario for when I like to wear my socks. But after April, well, in July, I put all of my socks into storage, so I currently do not have access to them, except for the one pair that I now have finished, like I mentioned. This 59 wears number is interesting though. If I compare it to my 2024 number, I had 69 wears across the entire year. So that was between January and June, and then October to December. So I do think my like wear number for my socks was at like a higher trajectory this year, at 59 wears just in the first 4 months compared to 69 wears the full year last year. So something interesting just to think about. Okay, my number 2 most worn knit is a combination of all 4 of my Palm Springs tanks. Combined, they have a total of 44 wears, which just makes me so happy because the Palm Springs tank is my own design, available on my website and on Ravelry. But out of the 4 that I've knit, my green Palm Springs tank has 16 wears this year, my blue has 16 wears, my purple one has 8 wears, and my striped one has 4 wears. And the striped one is the one that I finished most recently. I think I finished it in August or September. So definitely has the least amount of time to be worn. So it makes sense that it has the least number of wears. But I do have all 4 of these tanks with me here in Las Vegas. So super happy about this 44 wears. My number 3 most worn knit is again a combination of my 2 Midland cardigans, both of which I knit this year in 2025. Combined, they have a total of 41 wears, which I think is crazy that I knit 2 cardigans this year, and then wore them 41 times. So my purple one has 27 wears and my gray one has 14 wears. My next highest number is my Alchemy pullover, which I'm wearing right now, which is another one of my designs. Has a total number of 25 wears this year, and I knit this last year in 2024. And then number 5 is everything that I have with under 20 years, but which I still felt were significant. So my stripe hype sweater had 18 wears between January and April. My Farnham tee had 17 wears between April and September. And my Clove sweater had 16 wears between January and May. And I'm gonna come back to my clove sweater, but something I want to point out, this is the only sweater that I am still wearing that is something that I knit before last year, before 2024. I knit this in 2022. So just something to keep in mind as I'm going through all of my wears. Okay, so some of my thoughts on everything that I'm wearing, everything on this whole chart. Related to what I just said, I'm still in this trend of mostly wearing items that I've knit recently in the last 1 to 2 years. And this is something that I talked a lot about in last year's video. In last year's video, I really went like on and on and on about, I felt like I feel like this is normal to knit something, it comes off your needles, and then you wear it a lot. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, right? You're very, very excited that you finished a project and you want to wear it. For me, what I have found is I knit things and then like I'm only wearing things that I have knit over the last 2 years. And then the things that I have knit from like the year before that, I stop wearing. So I was looking back at my graph that I have here, everything that I wore in 2024, and the items on that list span from 2024 and 2023. And now I'm looking at this list from 2025, and the items span from 2025 and 2024. There's nothing on here from 2023. So yeah, I'm thinking like, okay, yes, everything from 2023 is currently in my storage unit, right, for the last 6 months of the year, but they weren't in my storage unit the first 6 months of the year. So that trend is still happening, and it's something that I need to think about still and be a little bit more conscious of, I think. And I'm gonna come back to this in my like thoughts and plans for this year, 2026. My other my other thought for the things that I am wearing, I think I've done a great job at a couple of the things that I've designed, both in my Alchemy and in my Palm Springs tank, and then knitting those things and wearing them, because if I'm wearing the things that I designed and I'm really enjoying them, like, you know, really good job. I'm really proud of myself, and I don't know. I've done a great job on designing at least 2 garments that I really love to wear, and I'm proud of that. One of the other big takeaways that I had from this video last year was that I wanted to make more cardigans, and I did that. I knit 3 cardigans this year. One was the book club cardigan that I feel like I finished in like the last quarter of the year. I finished it in October or November? When did I finish it? I don't remember. I'm really bad at remembering dates. Maybe it was November. I finished it right at the end of the year, so it didn't have that much time to be worn, but I finished my 2 Midland cardigans in like the first part of the year, and then I wore the crap out of them. So really, really happy with that goal and doing what I said I wanted to do. So good job there. Okay, let's move on and let's look at my wears per month. So I'm gonna put 2 charts up here. The top chart shows the number of days that I wore knits per month. So keep in mind, right, there's only a certain number of days every month, 31, 30, 28 days out of the month that I could be wearing knits. The bottom chart, the yellow chart, shows the total wears or instances that I wore per month. So for example, if I wore more than one knit in a single day, I count how many knits I wore that day, and all of those knits are counted up and included in that day and in that month. So the bottom chart, those numbers can go higher than the number of days in the month, okay? The month that had the highest number of wears is May. This makes total sense. This was the month where I went on my trip to Scotland, and this was the knitting trip to Scotland, so I was very conscious about wearing knits every single day that I was there, and almost every day I wore multiple knits. It was really warm when we were there, so basically my uniform the entire trip was a Palm Springs tank and a Midland cardigan, and I brought with me 2 of my Palm Springs tanks, I think, or did I bring 3 of them? I can't remember if I brought all 3 that I had. I can't remember if I brought my purple one or not. It might have just been my blue and my green at the time. But then I also brought both of my Midland cardigans. I had just finished my gray one right before we left for the trip. So I was like literally going back and forth with like all of the combinations of my blue Palm Springs tank and my purple cardigan, my green Palm Springs tank and my purple cardigan, and then my blue Palm Springs tank and the gray cardigan, and my green Palm Springs tank and my gray cardigan. And or like I had some of my other t-shirt knits as well, like my Farnham tee, and I would wear it with a cardigan. So I had a lot of like tank tee cardigan wears and options going on as well. So that is what was really going on in May. If you remember, between January and April is when I was wearing a lot of my socks. So that's why you see the number of instances is higher than the number of days. Between January and April, it's mostly because of the days where I had multiple knits was because I would wear socks and a sweater. Let's talk about the summer, because my goal from one of my goals from last year was to knit more summer items so that I could like keep my knitwear wears up during the summer months. And I don't think I did a bad job, right? Like 16, 12, 16, that's like half the month. 16 out of 30 days, right? 16 out of 31 days. I don't think that's terrible. I think it could be better, but I've got other tank tops and t-shirts and like other stuff in my closet that I wear as well, you know? So for the summer, I think that's okay. For the fall, for September and October, yeah, I just really wasn't in the mood. I didn't have, well, no, let's be honest. September and October in Las Vegas, it's still hot, okay? And I just wasn't in the mood. The 3 knits that I wore in September, I wore my Farnham tee twice and my green Palm Springs tank once. And I know that the only reason I wore my Farnham tee twice was to try to relive my Scotland memories because I made such good memories while wearing it in Scotland. And I don't know why I wore my Palm Springs tank, but it's because I love my Palm Springs tank, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I just had a really difficult fall in September and October, and I just couldn't be bothered to wear knitwear. And I think that's okay. I mean, we all go through stuff in life and phases where stuff happens, and that's what was going on. So I was definitely like on a trajectory, like I had mentioned before with the socks, at the beginning of the year to, I think, wear my knits more this year than I did last year. But by not wearing them basically at all in September and October, yeah, that died. So it's okay. It is what it is. And when I was really dreading, to be honest, looking at this data a few days ago, because these months was all I could think about. I was like, I didn't wear my knits. I didn't wear my knits at all. Like, this data is just going to show that I didn't wear my knits. All I could think about was the months in last year's notebook that looked like this, that just had X's all the way down because I didn't wear my knits at all. And I was nervous. I was like, how am I gonna sit here and make this video? And like, I can't just like not make this video because, you know, I've done it. Like, I enjoy making this video, right? I enjoy going through the data. And I don't want to just like skip it one year. But how am I gonna sit here and just be like, yo, I didn't wear my knits this year? So it was a relief to look back and see the first part of the year where I wore my knits a lot, and to see that that kind of like carried the number. But yeah, I do have to acknowledge that there was other stuff going on in the fall that put a big fat goose egg in October. So it picked up a little bit in November and December, as you can see, back to 14 and 11. But I mean, November and December, typically like the last couple of years, would have been as high as like January and February. And, you know, we're at like half that, less than half that. So nowhere near, well, okay, yeah, half of that January, February number. So I'm still not back to like where I was, but again, I don't have access right now to my full knitwear wardrobe. So that is also playing a big part in this. Like, the only pullovers that I have right now are my Alchemy pullover and my Olga sweater that I finished this year. And then the only cardigans that I have are my 2 Midland cardigans and my book club cardigan. So my knitwear wardrobe right now is seriously lacking. So it's okay. We're just need to like take a breath, take a beat. We're not gonna beat myself up over like not having high knitwear numbers right now. The eventual plan is to at some point in the new year rescue no, when I'm able to get all of my stuff out of my storage unit, move back to Southern California, and I'll have all of my knits again. So I'm not sure when I'll be able to do that, but hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. We'll just say that, hopefully soon. So, all right, my thoughts on my wears per month. I think I think I said all of this. At the beginning of the year, I was tracking to be wearing my knits more than last year up through August, but my change in trend in September for the rest of the year obviously changed that trajectory. Looking back at the numbers now, I'm actually surprised by how many days I wore knits in November and December because I thought it was fewer than 14 and 11 respectively, which I did say that. So overall trends and takeaways, let's move on. I loved wearing knit socks and slippers, and I still want more knit socks. I talked about that last year. I do still want more knit socks. I finished a pair this year, like I said, at the end of December. I've already got my next sock set picked out. I've got the yarn wound up. I just need to cast it on. Every time I start knitting a pair of socks, I feel like I start knitting it and then I abandon that project. And then when I pick the socks back up again, I'm just like, why do I ever put these down? They're so easy and so fast to knit. I should be knitting more socks. Other stuff just gets in the way, you know? Anyways, number 2, last year I talked about how I'm gravitating away towards wearing variegated yarn and how I'm loving solids and stripes. And this year, I didn't wear any of my sweaters with variegated yarn. I definitely went ham on my stripes with my Farnham sweater, my Farnham tee, my stripe hype, and my striped Palm Springs tank. And I have a new design that I'm knitting that's currently a whip. So that is full steam ahead on stripes. I feel like stripes, I don't know, are stripes still in? Because I'm still full in on stripes. I don't know, maybe they were so 2 years ago, but I'm still full in on stripes, so we'll see. Yarn choice. So my Alchemy pullover, my clove sweater, my stripe hype, they are all DK superwash merino yarn. So again, it's very clear that I love FOs in this specific yarn choice. But my Midland cardigans are both knit in non-superwash, and I am in the midst of becoming obsessed with non-superwash yarns. And I really, really like some of the properties of non-superwash. I really like how it can be squishy and bouncy, but also durable and not stretch out. So I'm hoping to work with more non-superwash in the future. I've got a couple of, actually I've got a few projects on my to knit list that I'm hoping to cast on in the next couple of months. My Harvest Flower sweater, I have the Sunday Morning DK, that is a BFL Masham, that is non-superwash. I don't have yarn for this yet, but I want to knit up the Dagmar zipper sweater by Petite Knit, and I'm going to need a non-superwash yarn for that. I've really been thinking about the one of the Durirum Natura yarns. They have a few different ones. The Gilead is one that I've been looking into. But I've also just been considering potentially using the Cascade 220 non-superwash. I don't know if anyone has a recommendation potentially for that sweater, non-superwash, let me know in the comments, that'd be great. And then the DRK Everyday Cardigan by Andrea Mowry. I have Witchfire Fibers, her special Farm Yarn blend is a non-superwash that I'm going to be using for that. So I'm really looking forward to working with a lot more not necessarily I guess non-merino. I love merino, okay, don't get me wrong, I love merino, but just working with more non-merino, different breeds, non-superwash, all sorts of different yarns this year. Also, just to say, I do love superwash. Like, superwash has its place. My Alchemy is knit in superwash DK, like I had mentioned. I'm not hating on superwash at all. I'm not hating on any yarn in general. I just want to expand what I am using and what I have used in general. So, ooh, cardigans versus pullovers. I was shocked. If you watched my last video, my everything that I knit in 2025, I was shocked when I looked at all of my finished objects this year and realized that I had only knit one pullover, the Olga sweater. But like I had mentioned before, one of my main goals from this video last year was to knit more cardigans, and I did that. I made my 3 cardigans, my 2 Midlands and my book club cardigan, and I wore the crap out of them. So I think that shows exactly why I needed to make them and why I'm excited to keep making cardigans. They fit really nicely into my wardrobe and my preferences. So of course, I'm always going to have pullovers on my to make list, but I found my love for cardigans this year. And again, I favor newer seasons with my knits. This is something I talked about in length last year, and it was exacerbated this year with the items that I made available to myself and with what I put in storage. So I'm going to make a goal for myself for next year to figure this out. More to come next. Okay, from last year's video comments. This is a little bit of like a Q&A, but also a discussion. So I'm wondering if you think the way your knitwear is stored has any impact on how often you wear them. Like the new ones are on top in the drawer, so you see them first. I hadn't thought about this before I saw this comment, but I think it could definitely be applicable to some people. For me, when I'm like getting dressed in the morning, I think I already have an idea of what I want to wear before I go into my closet. Which when I was reading this comment, like I didn't even realize that that is how I get ready in the morning. So I'm curious also if that is the same for you or not. But I can totally see how this would be a thing. Like if I didn't know what I wanted to wear that day and like I'm just looking in my knitwear drawers and I see the first thing that's on top, yeah, it would just be really easy to grab that and go, especially if it's something that I wore, you know, more recently and I just put it back on top. Yes, and like if the older stuff is buried underneath, like I'm not gonna go digging, right? So I can definitely see that potentially being something that could impact your number of wears and like cycle of wears. So I wanted to bring that up. Are there any knits that you don't wear because they need a minor fix that bugs you, like a button fell off? This was also something that I was thinking about like over the last couple of days, and I was like, no, I don't think this really applies to me. And then I was thinking about it more and I was like, actually, yeah, 100% it applies to me. I do think I've done a pretty good job over the last maybe year or so at modifying my knits while I'm still knitting them so that this isn't necessarily an issue. But when I first started knitting, or like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I remember that this was an issue a lot. Like I would knit a sweater, specifically, I remember my specific issue was I would knit a sweater and the sleeves wouldn't be long enough. And then I wouldn't wear it because that would really bother me. The sleeves would kind of be tight, and then like they wouldn't be long enough, and I would always be pulling them down and they wouldn't be long enough. And then I was like, I don't want to wear this sweater because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. And yes, that definitely impacted its number of wears. And now I know that I need to like measure my sleeves fully before I finish knitting the sweater. I feel like that is a very relatively simple modification to make before you finish knitting the sweater. But there are, you know, other potential issues that could impact wear. And one thing that I'm currently wrestling with one of my knits is my book club cardigan and its button band. I put the book club cardigan on the other day to film my last video, my Everything I Knit in 2025 video, and I said, oh no, I think I hate this. So I originally thought, I'm just gonna leave it. It's totally fine. I can wear it like this. And now I'm thinking I may need to redo the entire button band. And that thought is potentially going to keep me from wearing that knit until I fix the button band. So I would say, yeah, this happens sometimes. So. Okay, this was kind of a comment, like a best practice that someone left. One of my best practices for wearing older sweaters is A, I wear the knit sweater to work every day in the fall and winter, and B, I try not to wear the same sweater within a 2-week period. My coworkers definitely notice and call me out for having favorites if I wear one sweater more often. And C, when I'm organizing and tidying my knitwear in my closet on the weekend, I try to pull forward sweaters that haven't been worn lately so they're more likely to be chosen in the week ahead. And I really liked that and I wanted to share that. And if that's something that you can implement to wear your knitwear more, there you go. So thank you for sharing that. Question. I'd also love to know what your typical clothing choices are in general in regards to leaning towards newer knits. Do you tend to renew your closet with clothes every year, gravitating towards the newer ones you've just bought, or do you think it's more even? I really liked this question because it got me thinking. I was trying to think about my shopping habits. I don't necessarily feel like I renew my closet every season. It's more when I feel like I have a gap in a specific piece or something. But when I do go shopping or whenever I do get a new piece in, I feel like, yeah, that is the only thing that I want to wear for like a while. And it does feel like that is it's the same pattern with my knitwear. Like, for example, I recently went to Old Navy and I was like, I need like regular long sleeve shirts. Like, it's cold here in Las Vegas now, it's cold in the house. I just need like plain long sleeve shirts, simple basic long sleeve shirts. And so I bought like 4 of them, and like it's literally all I've been wearing this last week is my long sleeve shirts. And so yeah, I haven't really been wearing my sweaters. I've just been wearing my long sleeve shirts because they're new, right? They're shiny, they're new, and I want to wear them. But yeah, it's kind of like the same pattern that I feel like I've had with my knitwear. So this was an interesting question. It was an interesting thing for me to think about because I do think it's the same. I do think, yes. I do think I go through the same thing with like regular clothes as I do with my knitwear. So maybe it's just me, maybe that's just my cycle and my trends is I favor newer stuff. I mean, look, let's be real here. I'm a Taurus, and as a Taurus, I like shiny new things. And so maybe that's just the way it is. Maybe that's just who I am. And maybe I just need to accept it. Okay, next one. I also live in SoCal and am interested in learning to knit. I'm a crocheter to make my own clothes, but I'm worried that it's too warm to wear knitwear. Okay, I love this because obviously I get to talk about the weather. I'm going to talk about the weather once and all of the comments down below are going to be about the weather, okay? This was my response to that person. It definitely gets cool enough in Southern California to wear sweaters and cardigans. Of course, it is based on preference. I think you just have to make sure to choose the right patterns. I have found that anything worsted weight or above is too heavy or warm, and I typically don't wear those garments. And as with any person and climate, it also depends on your preference and how/where you would wear the garments. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible. You can go back and watch my videos and see how often I've worn all of my sweaters and my cardigans and my knitwear in SoCal and now here in Las Vegas. So yeah. So this was someone else. So far it is very evident that I have a recency bias, but 2024 was only my second year of knitting. So the recency bias also has to do with fit issues in older sweaters. 100%. Mine was the same way. And I do think that's something to keep in mind. Like my first couple of years of knitting, my 2020, 2021, even 2022 sweaters, I think fit issues, again, yarn choice definitely plays into it and is definitely a factor. And then the last one from the comments, here's my hack for making sure I wear the clothes I knit, crochet, and sew. I stopped buying clothes other than things I can't make well. For example, shoes, down parkas, proper bras. I do make sports bras, and it has worked wonders. And I think that's fair. I 100% have stopped buying, like sweaters and cardigans and stuff like that in stores. I can't remember the last time I've bought a sweater in the store. I do buy like jackets and sweatshirts and stuff. But yeah, I mostly buy like basic tank tops, like I said, long sleeve shirt, like very, very basic t-shirts to wear like under my knits and stuff. And then like graphic t-shirts, Taylor Swift t-shirts, stuff like that. And then pants, jeans, dresses. So I think I would probably say a lot of knitters probably do that, but if you're still buying knitwear, I guess I'd be curious, what knitwear are you buying that you can't make or that you don't want to make? Because that's another good question. So, all right, last thing here. What's next? So for 2026, I definitely am going to continue tracking. I've got everything set up in my 2026 journal. Guys, please be proud of me. I wore knitwear yesterday. Oh no, sorry. Today's the 3rd. I wore knitwear on January 1st, okay? I didn't wear knitwear yesterday. And once I get my knitwear collection back out of storage, what I really want to do is a full audit of it. And I want to be real with myself about what I'm going to wear versus what I'm not going to wear, and then actually try to wear those items that I want to keep and then donate or figure out what to do with the items I know I won't wear going forward. I am tired of looking at this list at the end of every year and feeling bad about not wearing all of the things that I've knit. Something else that I want to briefly mention that I haven't talked about at all is just like is weight. Over the last, I don't know, I guess 3 to 4 years, my weight has definitely fluctuated up and over the last year down. So my knits are going to fit different. Stuff that I knit back in 2022 and 2023 when I was trying to wear it maybe last year, and I felt like maybe it didn't fit right, so maybe that's why I didn't wear it. Now it might fit better, so I might want to start wearing it again. So that is definitely going to impact how I feel about some of my older knits when I go and do this audit later this year. So just something briefly that I wanted to mention. I don't want to talk about it too much. But my 2026 goal is to achieve around the same percentage that I had this year. I'm lowering it a little bit from what my goal was this year. So I want to do around 60% or better. So I was at 58% this year. I want to do around 60% in 2026. And then, as always, keep noticing trends, especially around the seasonality of my knits. So that is everything that I wore this year, I guess last year in 2025. To end this video, I am choosing a giveaway winner from the last video. My everything that I knit in 2025 video. We did a giveaway for the 2026 Yarn Enthusiast Journal, and here is the winning comment. So if this is your comment, please send me an email at knitcalifornia@gmail.com, and we will work together to get this 2026 Yarn Enthusiast Journal mailed out to you ASAP so that you can start using it. I'm very, very excited to get this into your hands. So thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was interesting to you. I hope you maybe got some inspiration from it and would like to start tracking your own knitwear journey, wearing your knits journey. Like I said, I always have fun making this video, even if this year's was a little bit more interesting than the last couple of years. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It truly means a lot, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!